Right then, lads and lassies, just show you the heatsink actually taken off. Now the well, we've not got a North Bridge on the board, but there is a chip there, and that's a NVIDIA NF200, allowing us more PCI Express lanes, because the P67 natively only has 1 6 times and then 1 8 times, and if you run a pair, then they both run at 8, just like we did with the 1156. So that's why we need an NF200 to allow us lots more PCI Express lanes. There is the P67. Obviously we weren't allowed to show you this before. We also weren't allowed to show you the socket. This was all buttoned up in the NDA previously, but there you go, that's what all the fuss was about. Not that anyone really, I won't say cares, but it doesn't really make much of a difference to the average user. But at least now I can show you the whole board without heat sinks, etc. The reason why we have so many different SATAs is that literally is all the different memory controllers as well. Something that I've been quite surprised about, the amount of memory controllers that they've packed in. But we do have 1, 2 NEC chips. I do apologise. See, look, I'm trying to look at the same time. There's the 2 NEC chips. That's one of the Marvel controllers. It's quite difficult to see in here with the camera and with all the reflections and everything. There's the NF200 again. Anyway, I'm going to stop yabbering on. There is the board all dismantled. Now, let's get the old girl back together and actually have a look at the performance. Right, so you've had your nudity fix. For all of those tech nerds out there, you now need to go and wipe your happiness off your desk. Go give your hands a wash. There will be no more nudity, and we are only going to be looking at the board fully clothed now. Now, I'll put this board away, box away rather. This is the top of the range Gigabyte P67 board, and it's also part of the new all black series that they've brought us. Finally, the blue, baby blue and white is gone, although, especially in my bench rig, the blue and white goes very well, and you can kind of build your rig and custom around it, and not being funny, it kind of goes with the logo as well. But at the end of the day, the all black with a smidgen of colour like the gold on these heatsinks, it's going to appeal to many more end users, because it's a lot more neutral, and you can get away with anything. If you want to go green with your rig, you can. If you want to go black with your rig, you can. If you want to go red with your rig, at the end of the day, with a nice black board, your upgrade and customising options for the rest of your rig are pretty much endless. So big, do you know what I mean, props to them for taking this kind of bold set. Although it's not the first all black board out there, it's the first of the major kind of players that have really gone with it in a big way. To be quite honest with you, I see these selling a lot better than any of the other ones that I've done in the past. Something I also want to mention is what I was quite interested to realise, the Maximus 4 isn't 16 times 16 times on the graphics for dual graphics. One card is 16, if you put 2 in, it drops the pair to 8, which I found massively confusing. But with the Gigabyte, 2 cards, both will run at 16 times lanes. The third lane in the board has only got 8 slots in it to start off with, and if you put a third PCI Express in this, then it will drop all 3 to 8. But for the majority of us out there that are, you know, literally going to have 2 graphics cards in there, then you'll be perfectly fine. I've not tested it with a sound card or anything like that yet. That will, you know, literally use next to no PCI Express. There is a PCIe 1 at the top. So yeah, it's the first P67 board that we've had that does support dual graphics with both maxed out with 16 times lanes. Obviously you can run 3 if you want, but it was the dual graphics that really opened my eyes up that both of them do run at full speed. Also, obviously it's SLI and Crossfire compatible as well, so there's no need for you to kind of have a brand loyalty with this board. You can literally, you know, have whatever you want. So awesome. But what I want to do is I'm going to, for a change, I'm going to bring you in and give you a nose around the bench rig before we start going into having a look at some benchmarks, talking about the overclocking and stuff like that. Right then guys, just a quick nose around the actual system so I can show you it all built up. I've got a GTX 570 in there, which is what we will be using for all of our P67 tests. And that's just a reference 570. Got the NHD14 on there because when I say I think that is the best cooler on the market, that's the reason why I use it. It's absolutely stonking. Something that you'll be seeing more of in the not too distant future if I sit down on my squeaky chair is we've got some of the new Kingston Ram for Sandy Bridge. It's 2133 at 1.65 volts and it's a nice normal height heatsink, so fits perfectly with the NHD14. Well, you don't, there we go. You can see you've literally got loads of room there anyway. But anyway, yeah, we've got that in there. I'm running this on a Veloci, Western Digital Veloci, and then we've got the 1200 watt Mushkin powering it all. And what I will try and show you is on this. Will it focus? There we go. Right, that's the third PCI Express slot, and as you can see the pins don't go right the way up, they stop. That's because it's an 8 times lane, whereas if you look at that one you can see the pins go right the way to the end, so that one is fixed 8 times. Anyway, that's a look at the rig itself. Let's get you back on the tripod. Right then guys, I'm going to be testing this with a 2500K today, and this is also my it's my second 2500K because there's more than one team member at Overclock 3D, and what we've decided to do is I've sent the other chip off to Brian, and he's going to be doing a lot of the Sandy Bridge reviews now. But so I've sent him the chip that we know does 5 GHz plus, but I'm now using a different CPU, and this CPU seems to have a limit around 4.9 GHz no matter what you do with the volts. I know that because I've tested it already on the Intel board, which I know will push the chips right the way up and beyond. But yeah, 4.9 is the absolute top end on this chip that I'm using now. But the quite crazy thing about it is, in the Gigabyte, it's ridiculously simple to overclock. And I am going to do a separate Gigabyte Sandy Bridge overclocking video, because if you get a quality board like this, it is unbelievably simple. But while we're talking about overclocking, something that I am immensely surprised with the Gigabyte, and I don't know why the other manufacturers haven't done this, but when with the other boards that we've done, you could only overclock the actual CPU to its maximum multiplier limit on the turbo. You couldn't do it on just the normal core. You could get it so far but then literally you had to overclock the turbo. With the Gigabyte, however, you can disable turbo, you can disable EIST, speed step, all of that stuff, and just overclock the multiplier. So, yes, what I am saying is you can run this board at its maximum overclock without all the frequency dancing that the other boards do. Now, I don't know whether this is at the moment exclusive to Gigabyte, because at this present moment in time the only boards that I've tested thoroughly have been Asus and Gigabyte. Now, I know for a fact that if you disable everything on the Asus, you can't push the main multiplier up high enough. With a Gigabyte you can. Whether that's an early BIOS thing or anything, I'm literally talking about what I have experienced so far. And with the Gigabyte you can disable all the speed step, EIST, everything, turn all of that off and just have a static core clock. Now, I was led to believe that the actual processors didn't support this at all, so I don't know whether this is some clever BIOS that they've come up with, or some, you know, funky tweaks, but the way we were led to believe is that the turbo overclocking was the only way that you could overclock the Sandys, and it seems not. Well, at least with these boards it seems not, which is quite good news really when you think about it. Now, this board is ridiculously easy to overclock, as I'll show you in the other video, but 1.4 volts, 4.9 gigahertz, it's maxed my chip out, and all I've had to do is turn on load line calibration and set my core voltage. It's been, and you can leave everything else on auto. Depending on your memory, you may need to set your actual memory voltage, but I've touched no other voltages whatsoever. Everything's on auto, you don't need to mess about with it. And all I've done is I've gone into the memory settings and manually set my memory timings and the speed I want it to run at, which I'm running the Kingston at its rated, which is 2133, and it boots straight away into Windows, bish bash bosh, and you're there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a dedicated overclocking video so everyone can find their feet with these overclocks and stuff. But quite literally, like I said, it's running rated at with hardly any work at all. The only thing is with the BIOS that I'm running on this system at the moment, it's the CPU-Z and like Everest and IDA, programs like that aren't reading the voltages of the core and the board properly. But I can assure you that's a BIOS problem that they're working on currently, and within the next couple of 3 releases they will have that all fixed. So ignore CPU-Z voltage, as that's incorrect. It's actually set to 1.4 in BIOS and we're 100% stable. But I want to bring you in so I can show you that these clocks, they don't dance around all over the place, it's just static now. Right then guys, I've zoomed you in so you can see the CPU-Z screeny there, 2500K, ignore the core voltage because that's incorrect. As you can see, the clock is static at 4.9 gigahertz. Now I'm going to zoom out. You can see there's nothing else in the taskbar. I'm not running anything secretly in the background. The clock really is static. It's not dancing about with everything like that. And you can see if I go over to the other side, if I zoom in a bit more, because it is a bit fuzzy, it's just struggling to focus on the screen because of my lights. Anyway, sorry for it being so in and out today, but you can see that the voltages there aren't the temperatures there are quite good. Now what I'm going to do is just open Prime quickly. Move that to the side, just so that you can see the temperatures there still. The temperatures on the left are the actual temperatures, and then you've got the the lowest set of temperatures, the highest set of temperatures, and the load on the cores. And as you can see, the load on the cores is 100%, and yet with this overclock on the board, like I said, 1.4 volts, 4.9 gigahertz stable, we're still all under 70 degrees with a 4.9 gigahertz overclock. It's absolutely nuts. And what I need to kind of reiterate is, yeah, okay, lots of people are getting clocks like this, but it's literally I've put no work into this overclock at all. Pretty much anyone could achieve this overclock with this chip. This configuration is nuts. The board just makes it so simple for you. It's unbelievable. But that's enough of that. What we're going to do now is crack on with some benchmarks, just so I can show you what the board's capable of. We don't need to kind of demonstrate the CPU stuff too much, but we'll do a lot of gaming stuff because I know that's what most of you are going to be looking at using this for. Right then guys, we're going to crack straight on with some benchmarks. I've got Cinebench open. I'll just kick that off with the Opengl test. That will start in a second. Then we'll do the CPU as well while I've got it open. I'll do a quick W prime for you, and then what we'll do is we'll go into some gameplay, because the majority of people that buy this are more than likely going to be buying it for a mega gaming rig or something that's going to, that they really want to push their system and have a top end system. And also where this does support full speed dual graphics cards, I can see a lot of hardcore gamers wanting this. This would be perfect to chuck a pair of 570s, 580s, 6970s in. You're not going to spend all that money on graphics card and then stick them in half-speed lanes, are you? Right, we've got a 71.84 frames per second on the Opengl with a stock 570. Now we'll let the CPU benchmark do its thing. Bearing in mind, like I said, this is the stock 570 and the 4.9 gigahertz overclock. See those boxes starting to get faster and faster going around the outside now as the images are getting easier to render. All the little boxes are getting easier to render anyway. Right, we've got a 7.85 points on the CPU benchmark. I will do a quick W prime for you. I don't need to make any changes to the program because it's set up for 4 cores anyway. That's it, done already. I won't bother zooming you in, but for the 32 million, it's 7.895 seconds. And what I'm going to do is open Fraps, and then we'll do Alien versus Predator. Now the gaming is mainly going to be stuff that's going to be based on the graphics card, but we all like to have something to sit here and watch. So we'll do this. I will do some, obviously some Crysis and some Metro as well. And I'll probably do some Resident Evil 5 for you as well, and probably we'll do a run of 3D Mark 11 and 3D Mark Vantage as well. You can see there that we're getting over 60 frames a second at the moment. Right, that's the end of that one. What I'm going to do is go straight in and we'll do Resident Evil in DirectX 9. This is quite a quick one to start up, so I'm not going to bother cutting in and out. Going to fix benchmark. Now this has got the frames per second meter on it anyway here, but I've obviously got fraps running in the top left hand corner as well. Another reason why I've not got the like the audio on is so that you can hear the graphics cards, you can hear the actual system running, and there's nothing really to hear, to be quite honest with you. Now you can see this is consistently running over 100 frames a second. I've seen 150 at points. Just as I say, it runs consistently over 100 frames a second, it drops down below 100 frames a second. Lovely. Sod's law. Anyway, that's the end of that test. Let's move on to some Metro gameplay. Right guys, on to Metro, the same bit of the game we always play, or I always play and I always show you. You can see the frames per second up in this top left hand corner. Frames per second there up in the, sorry I'm forgetting to talk, frames per second up in the top left hand corner there. I've not seen it go below 35 at all. 35, sorry, not seen it go below 30 at all. One day I'll put in. I know it will never let me. Right, that's enough of Metro guys. Let's crack on with the good old Crysis. Right then guys, I've got this on Gamer at the moment. And I've got the wrong gun out. You'll like to watch explosions. At the end of the day, we all know gamer settings are just not really stressing this at all. So I'm going to do the best I can from within the game. I'm not going to restart it and mess about. I'm just going to change the settings from within the game because then you can also see what I'm doing. So we stick it on to 16 times anti-aliasing, and then I'll stick everything up to enthusiast. Right, And now I'll get on with the rest of it. .35, 36 frames a second roughly up in that top corner. Right, we got everyone. We, at the moment, if you have a look, it's just, and I do mean just, dipping below 30 frames a second. Let's see if we can't get me dead. I've got to admit, I know there's a lot of the regulars that pretty much watch all of my videos, which I'm always eternally grateful for, but I have really started enjoying playing Crysis a lot more. I was expecting another armoured vehicle, but doesn't look like I'm going to get one. Now, as many of you will know, Crysis is not my mastermind subject. I don't pretend that it is. All I do is show you some terrible gameplay so that you can see how not to do it. Right, time for me to get out of here. Come on, kill me already! Alright, don't they? Right then guys, that's enough terrible gameplay. Let's get on to the conclusion for the board and the whole review. Right then guys, let's get this review wrapped up. At the end of the day, Gigabyte UD7, P67 UD7, does it really live up to its name, or, you know, is it really worth being at the top of the pile for the Gigabyte boards? Quite an easy yes, really. It's the only board at the moment I'm aware of. There may be others, but it's the only board at the moment I'm aware of does support 2 graphics cards with 16 times lanes on each. The overclocking is ridiculously stupid, to the point where it's so easy. I thought I instantly went in and started doing what I was expecting I had to, and I didn't. I actually spoke to Gigabyte about it, and they were like, no, you don't need to worry about any of that. Just leave it all on auto and just wang with it. And it's only really when you're like hardcore pressing the clocks, trying to get the absolute most out of your chip, that you're ever going to need to mess about with the voltages too much. And I know the chip that I'm using now has a limit of 4.9 gigahertz, as I'm hearing quite a lot of the retail 2500Ks do as well. But it does that it does 4.9 gigahertz so easily, it's unbelievable. Now, I've not mentioned awards in the videos for a little while now, but I kind of think that this really deserves talking about, because Gold Award, easy, because it just does everything so easily, it's unbelievable. And the Performance Award as well, because 4.9 gigahertz with really only having to turn on load line calibration and the setting the V-core is just nuts. 4.6 gigahertz can be pretty much leaving everything on auto. It's just ridiculously easy to use. It looks amazing. It is one of the more expensive P67 boards, admittedly, around the kind of £250 mark. But this is the top of the range board. This is not aimed at the lower end of the market, so it's for those that are really looking to have the absolute best that they possibly can. And as you saw, alright, I'm using Notch HD14, but we didn't see 70 degrees on any of the temps, and we need to remember that I was using 1.4 volts. And that, with any of the other chips, like a 920 or a 930 or a 950, the temps would have been much higher. And that's not because of the board, it's because of the chip, but you know what I mean, I'm just trying to give you all the options. But this is an absolute stonker of a board. Now, I have got other boards to look at, but for the complete package, if you're looking for the absolute best that you can get, it's been a long time for me to say this, but to be quite honest with you, this is the best P67 board I've had yet. And to be quite honest with you, this is setting the bar so high that it's going to be like climbing Everest for the others to kind of try and push past it. So yeah, Gold Award and Performance Award. This thing is absolutely mental. It's so easy to use that I didn't believe it could be so easy to use, and I had to keep going back and changing stuff, and then no, alright, I'll leave it all on auto then. Whereas most of the beginners would leave everything on auto and change it, I do things the opposite way around, and I probably shouldn't have, you know, even bothered with this. I should have just trusted it. It's absolutely cracking. So if any of you out there that were like, oh, I don't know whether I should, I don't know whether I shouldn't, should I get this board, should I get another board? As far as I'm concerned, this is the P67 board to have if you want the best you can possibly have when you're thinking about dual graphics cards maybe, or upgrade options later, and you don't want to buy one of the beginner boards, you want a good board to start off with, this is the one to have. So it's nice for me to be able to say good things about a product, because the last few I've not really liked them, but this is why I do reviews, is when we get an awesome product like this that leaves me with a smile on my face, and to be quite honest with you, makes me want one for myself. So with a happy Tiny Tom Logan giving a massive thumbs up for the Gigabyte P67A-UD7